Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to the greatest podcast that Chris Christie wishes he could be a part of. We have an absolutely fantastic show today. I want to take a quick second to just brag about how well James and I are doing in our picks against the spread. We both went 4-1 last week, and I also have to give credit to Eddie picking the Giants. He didn't even care what the spread was. He said Giants are winning by 15, and they won by 13, so definitely big props to him. We have our senior NBA analyst here. Also, he is a huge Orlando Magic fanboy for whatever reason, Nicholas Angiolilli. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we're definitely going to make fun of you for that and grill you on some questions here. We promise this is going to be a full NBA analysis show, and that's what we have for you today. But first, it's time for my opening rant.
Your number one source for sports.
You know who I can't stand? Kevin Durant.
He looks like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton had a kid.
Now, who can argue with that?
I hate Boston.
I'm the biggest Miami Heat hater you'll ever meet.
I just don't understand where you're getting your bogus information from.
What the hell are you even talking about?
Well, I'm sorry you're too freaking sensitive to handle the truth.
You think I'm crazy? I'm just getting warmed up.
You're now between the hash marks with James Koklak and Sean McCabe.
Every year, for the last couple of years, there has been one fairly decent team that misses the playoffs from the Western Conference. When if they were in the Eastern Conference, they would have been the 6th or the 7th seed. And then the talks begin about how the NBA should integrate the playoffs and just have the 16 best teams be in the playoffs. And that's a fair argument to have. This year is no different, with many stars that were in the Eastern Conference leaving to the Western Conference, making the East probably the weakest it's ever been, if not ever, in a very long time. And nobody wants to see a 7-9 Seattle Seahawks team in the playoffs, just like they don't want to see a 37-45 Charlotte Hornets team in the playoffs, especially when Oklahoma City went 44-38 and just missed it. And everybody hates that, except when the 7-9 Seattle Seahawks actually beats an 11-5 Saints team. Everybody loves that huge upset. But those are so rare, especially in the NBA where it is a 7-game series. And there are only about 3 teams that were 8 seeds that beat the number 1 seed in the NBA playoffs. So it is even more unlikely to happen in the NBA. But realigning the conferences because one is stronger than the other is a slippery slope and would be a huge mistake for the NBA. Number 1, it would kill rivalries. You'd have all these weird matchups that cause unmemorable series. Nobody wants to see the Houston Rockets play the Philadelphia 76ers or the Boston Celtics play the Dallas Mavericks. They want to see Philly versus Boston, or they want to see Houston versus Dallas. Those are the matchups, those are the rivalries everybody wants to see. Sports are better with rivalries, and combining the conferences just absolutely kills all rivalries. Number 2, there may be desirable matchups in the early rounds. Yes, we want to see Golden State and Cleveland play each other, but it would be absolutely horrible if this matchup happened in any round but the finals. It is just sacrilegious. Number 3, in reality, there's only like 4 or 5 teams every single year that have an actual shot at winning the championship. We shouldn't be concerned with the 15th, 16th, or 17th best teams in the NBA because they really don't do anything in the playoffs. Now, many people say, oh, what if we just had some teams change conferences? Yes. The playoffs were fairly boring last year, but the system isn't broken. The system isn't as broken as people make it out to be. And we all know the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So don't try to fix it. This would just cause more undesirable matchups. Just imagine if back in the day the Eastern Conference had the Bulls or the Pistons or the Celtics or the Sixers switch conferences. The Western Conference wouldn't be what it is today if it did not go through that long period of just being less than the Eastern Conference. Now it's the other way around. We can't just switch it because it would be more even. The Western Conference wouldn't be what it is today, and I bet in 10 years the Eastern Conference is going to dominate like it did once before. James, what do you think?
I think it can go both ways. I think the NBA has to do something because
it's other sports are starting to take a lead. Especially if you look at the playoffs. Anybody who wants to see competitive sports is not going to go watch an NBA game over an NHL playoff game, because the competition is it's not there at the moment unless you're at the finals, right? You just said in your rant that the NBA playoffs last year weren't all that entertaining.
Just last year.
So, but we've seen the same teams now make the finals 3 years in a row from both conferences.
Yeah.
Where's the parity? What if that matchup didn't happen?
But
say they did do 1 through 16. What if that matchup didn't happen in the finals? But what if they aren't the two best teams? What if the two best teams are in the Western Conference? What if the second best team is the Rockets or the Spurs or the Timberwolves or the Thunder?
Well,
and what if one of those teams are actually better than Cleveland as the season goes along?
Well, you could make the same argument back in the 80s, like the Bulls might have been the second best team, but they couldn't get past the Celtics, or the Pistons might have been the second best team, or whoever. But we didn't just change conferences because, this team doesn't have a fair shot, so let's just bring them to the other conference and have our dream finals matchup.
But it wasn't like Michael Jordan was overwhelmingly the favorite like the Cavaliers have been, or the Warriors have been.
I absolutely disagree with that.
Michael Jordan went in and he did win 6 in a row, but Michael Jordan went in and he had to earn those victories, where he had to work in each round, not just in the finals, but rounds 1 through 4.
Well, last year was different. Last year was different because we had a clear favorite in the East and we had a clear favorite in the West. But other than last year, there has not been a season like that.
I guess you know what? This is just dawning on me. Michael Jordan's in the league. What happens? He's in the prime of his career. What happens?
Everybody tries to beat him.
Okay, he goes 6-0 in the finals.
Okay, yeah.
With 2 years of retirement in between. LeBron's in the league. He goes to the Heat. He comes back to the Cavs. He has been in the finals no matter what team he's on.
Correct.
Since he went to the Miami Heat. So what that tells me is that you don't need a team in basketball. You need one player to get you to where you want to be, and then you need role players around you to get you to the next level.
Well, you need a LeBron James.
Yeah, well, you need a LeBron James, or you need that Michael Jordan. But where is the competition? Where is I wonder who's going to make the finals this year.
Well, this year I think we actually have that competition that we didn't have last year because of certain movement of players going to the Western Conference and making it more difficult.
I really hope so, because it's a part of 4 major sports. And all right, let me ask you a question. Okay, you know a decent amount about all 4 major sports.
Yes.
Can you tell me who's going to win before the season started? Who was going to win the World Series?
No, I couldn't tell you.
What about the Stanley Cup? It just started.
Couldn't tell you.
What about the Super Bowl?
Couldn't tell you.
The
Patriots are usually a favorite to be there, but exactly.
Okay, in the NBA, you could probably tell me who's going to win.
Okay, yes, I do agree with that. But in every single sport, you can name the 5 or 6 teams that are going to be there.
Well, yeah.
So, but it's always so. Basketball just this past year only had 2, but normally there is that 4, 5, or 6 teams that are going to be there.
Here's the other side of the argument, and it's in a different sport, but I think it's a totally valid and fair argument. Okay, would you consider the Chicago Blackhawks a dynasty?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so they won the Stanley Cup in 2000, 2010, 2013, 2015.
Correct.
Okay, in 2014, they had a first-round exit from the playoffs.
Yeah.
In between Stanley Cup wins.
Yes.
That's like the Golden State Warriors exiting the playoffs in the first round. Can you see that happening in the foreseeable future?
No.
And that's where I want the NBA to be. That's where I want them to they need to fix something to get themselves to that point. Okay? Another great example is, and hockey's my favorite sport, so that's why I have so many examples. 2012 Stanley Cup champion Los Angeles Kings were the 16th seed in the playoffs. Okay, last year the Nashville Predators were the 16th seed in the playoffs. You never ever see that in the NBA, and I think that if they had that, it would bring it would overtake the NFL
but the NBA
as
is
the biggest moneymaker in all major sports.
Well, the NBA is never going to be like that because, you have that in the NCAA tournament because it's a one-game scenario. But in basketball, when you're playing a 7-game series, 95% of the time, the best team is going to win. And you don't see that in football. You don't see that in baseball. You don't see that in hockey. It's the hottest, like in hockey, whoever has the best goalie. Baseball, whoever has the best pitching. Football, whoever has the best quarterback. So it's like, that definitely has, at basketball.
Joe Flacco proved that one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Nick, what do you think about this?
So on that immediate point that you guys are talking about parity, what I think is different because you could also argue baseball. You have 7-game series in the championship in the World Series.
Yes.
And in hockey you have 7-game series as well.
Correct.
The difference between that is in football, one blown coverage can lead to a touchdown. A couple blown coverages could lead to an entire change of a game. In baseball, you could have a couple. Your ace could be pitching amazing all night. He gives up a couple strikes or leaves a curveball high out of the park, and it completely changes the dynamic of the game. But with basketball, 1 or 2 plays isn't going to change the entire outcome of a game. You have hundreds of plays. It's a culmination of plays over the entire game, and that's where I think the best teams are really going to stand out.
Especially over a 7-game series. Like, you're not going, even if the better team has a bad game or a bad 2 games, it's very unlikely for them to have a bad 4 games.
Exactly. And to your point earlier about what I really agree with is the rivalries. Rivalries don't just come out of thin air. Rivalries are built on history, and the way to sell matchups is to create some sort of narrative. We all knew the Cavs are probably going to the finals this year, but what made it interesting was the narrative of Kyrie Irving going to the Celtics. And obviously last night's game with Hayward going down really puts a damper on that series, but you still have the Kyrie and LeBron back and forth that'll be compelling. People will tune in to watch.
Thoughts about the little dap at the end between them two?
That I found interesting, and what Reggie Miller brought up was interesting to me too. Was he was talking about it being just they've done that handshake hundreds of times, so it might have just been a reaction. And then, of course, once you do it with LeBron, you do it with the rest of the team. But it is interesting to see how they still have respect for one another. And LeBron's always been a classy guy, so
it kind of makes you think that the media blew this thing out of proportion. That like, oh, they hate each other now, when it's just like they just don't. They're still friends, but they just don't really care. They're just kind of
Sounds
there.
like the media.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But although the media did bring up a great point about LeBron, that he's the cheapest guy in the NBA. I thought that was the craziest thing because he's still not paying for Pandora.
Yeah, right.
And
he doesn't pay for service or his phone.
LTE,
Yeah.
uses Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, Pandora actually tweeted him and saying, "Hey, we'll hook you up with a free subscription."
So do you think that the NBA should or should not integrate the playoffs best 16 teams?
I agree with you that they should leave it how it is because of, one, the rivalries, as well as if you're going to do that, you're going to have to change the entire schedule and travel of each team because as it currently sits, teams within the division, along with, like you're saying, having rivalries and matchups, fresh matchups that you see, you're going to have them play 4 times a year, and you play a Western Conference team, like an Eastern Conference team plays a Western Conference team twice a year. So you have to even out the schedules in order for the strength of schedule to be even among all teams. And I honestly don't think it'll end up working. And along with the playoffs as well, what makes a larger tournament like March Madness be so compelling is you have one game.
Yeah.
If you have the Warriors play the Blazers,
just one game.
Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum could get hot.
Yeah.
And Steph Curry could be cold, Kevin Durant could be off, and you could see an amazing upset like a George Mason or something like that.
Yeah.
A larger sample size over a 7-game series, not likely it's going to happen.
Yeah, if the NCAA tournament had 5 or 7 game series, then it wouldn't be March Madness because Duke may lose that first game, but they would come back roaring the next 4 or whatever. James, besides being wrong about that the NBA should just pick the best 16 teams, do you have any other thoughts?
Hold on, I don't want to say I was wrong.
I do.
And it's not that I disagree with it. I just think that if they're not going to change the seedings to fix the playoffs, fix the system, and try to add a new dimension to it, how can they fix the system itself to add that new dimension? Because I think something needs to be fixed.
Why do you think it's broken? Because I mean, we've always known this NBA even before. Let's say before even LeBron went to Miami. You only had 4 or 5 teams that were really competing. You had the Spurs, you had the Cavs, you had the Celtics at the time, and who else? The Lakers and the Mavericks. Like, that's really all you had. Like, that were really in the Thunder. That's all you that were like the ones that like, okay, they have a shot at winning. Nobody thought Milwaukee's gonna come out of nowhere and
now I think that this will never happen, but if you have Durant on one team, LeBron on another, Steph Curry on another, Klay Thompson on another, everybody's on their own team. Everybody's got their own identity, kind of like what Kyrie Irving just did.
Yeah.
I think that it changes the landscape of the NBA a little bit, and I think it changes games, but I ultimately think that we're still going to see LeBron's team come out on top.
Yeah, with the league being, it's a players' league. That the NBA is the only league that is a players' league, and it's hard to say to a player, you can't go to this small market or you can't go to this big market for less money to play with your friends, because they can if they want to, and they have like the tax on the team, but teams are willing to pay the tax to win a ring. Mm-hmm. Like the Miami Heat did, like the Golden State Warriors are going to be doing.
And it's going to continue, and it's sad, but I see why. And
it really won't change until the collective bargaining.
Yeah, and until that happens, and you know what? And I'm a massive sports fan. I want to watch all kinds of sports. As we're doing this podcast, we have the Yankees game on, which is muted, so you can't hear it. I want to watch basketball, but I didn't watch a second of opening night last night because we had other games on that were more entertaining, that I didn't know the outcome of that game. The Boston-Cleveland game, I went into yesterday knowing that Cleveland was going to win that game. I just had that feeling. You ever wake up with a gut feeling about a sports game? Same type of deal.
What about the Warriors-Rockets?
That was also a good game. But you know what? I got to give love to my hometown New Jersey Devils. They were in overtime and a shootout. I'm a hockey guy. I'm watching hockey over basketball any day of the week. So, and they got to do something, because as a casual basketball fan as I am, I don't really want to watch it until the finals, until I see something that's worth watching. But with that being said, I want to kind of dive into our Eastern Conference standings 1 through 8. Who do you think is going to make the playoffs? Now, Sean, who do you have as your number 1 seed?
In the Eastern Conference, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers as the number 1 seed, especially after last night with the Hayward injury. I had Boston being the number 1 seed. I thought they were going to be the best regular season team, but now because of that injury,
That was gruesome.
Yeah, no, I took him a couple steps back, and I don't think Hayward is going to be playing this year. It would be a miracle if he did, but I think it could be a blessing in disguise for Boston, because it allows the younger players to actually play and grow. And Tatum looked good yesterday, and Jalen Smith looked good, and Marcus Smart looked good. They all looked good without Hayward, so I thought that it could be a progressive sign going forward. But I have the Cleveland Cavaliers as number 1 team in the East. What about you?
I have the Cavs as well.
Yeah, shocker.
I don't think anybody's going to take that spot. I think that it's the Cavs right now. It's going to be the Cavs games 1 through 82, and we'll see the Cavs in the finals again this year. Who do we got?
I agree with you guys as well, and I'm with Sean. Initially, I had the Celtics, but after that Hayward injury, and they're pretty thin now on depth as it is. With everybody that they lost, Avery, Jay Crowder, IT, Kelly Olynyk, that this Hayward injury hurts them even more. The Cavs, I think, will. I don't think they're winning more than 53 games, but they did get a little deeper, adding Wade, Isaiah Thomas. He's out until about December or so, but when he comes back, it'll be a great addition. Jay Crowder and Derrick Rose.
Okay. Number 2 team that I have in the East, I have a little bit of surprise here. I have the Washington Wizards.
Why is that a surprise? I think people expect John Wall to have a monster season this year.
Well, yes. However,
Take that next step.
I think many people don't have them ahead of Boston even after this injury. And the fact is, they don't have anything besides their starting five. Like you saw, like in the playoffs, that when the series got stretched out, if John Wall or Bradley Beal if they were not going off, Washington Wizards really, really struggled. But I do have them second because they have the second best backcourt in the NBA.
I have the Celtics.
You have the Celtics number two.
Yeah, even with the Hayward injury, did they give the timeline yet of how long he's going to be out?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
It is high ankle. From what I understand, so that's better.
I saw a fractured ankle and broken tibia, so likely he's out for the year. But
You think so?
But I also have seen, depending on how his recovery goes and exactly how many ligaments are torn, maybe could be coming back for the playoffs.
Okay.
But
Even with Gordon Hayward's injury, I'm sticking with Celtics number two. If he comes back, great. If he doesn't, Kyrie is a great player. There's a reason why he wanted to leave LeBron's team, because he has faith that he can carry his own. And he's a clutch player. He showed that. He was the clutch player on the Cavs, not LeBron. So I think they're in good hands with Kyrie. I think they'll be fine.
Nick, what do you got?
I had the Wizards as well as my number 2 seed.
Okay.
They did not make a lot of moves this offseason, and they are very thin at backup point guard. They just added Tim Frazier. That's not who you want as your backup point guard. So, and that's also why I think they had to sign Otto Porter to that long-term deal. It might hurt them in the future, but they had to do it if they wanted to compete now. But any injury to their starting five, and they could be in trouble for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, now going down the list, I have Boston at number 3. Like I said, the Hayward injury sucks, but it does allow Tatum and Smith and Smart to grow as a player, especially Jalen Smith. Like, he looked really good last night after that Hayward injury. He had like 25 points. And also, I think they have the best coach in the Eastern Conference, Brad Stevens. I think is by far the best coach in the Eastern Conference. And what do you got?
For number 3, I have the Washington Wizards.
Okay, so you just swept them.
Yeah.
Switched them.
I don't see another team that has a more talented starting five than the Wizards, other than the Celtics and the Cavs in the Eastern Conference, and that's why I put them number 3.
Okay.
I have the Raptors as my number 3 seed. I don't think they win 51 games. You know, they had their best season of all time last year. I don't think they quite win 51 games, but I have them about around 47 or so. I do like the addition of C.J. Miles. I think losing Corey Joseph as the backup point guard and Patrick Patterson along with P.J. Tucker is going to hurt them a bit, which is why I have them losing a little less games. But the East just opened up a lot with this Celtics injury, and the Raptors will still be around with Lowry, DeRozan, Valanciunas.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm a freaking idiot because I've been saying Jalen Smith this whole time, and it's really Jaylen Brown. I should be disowned by Celtics Nation for saying this, but hey, Jaylen Brown, he's going to be a baller. Number 4 team, I have Milwaukee. This is a team that I really like. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo. How many people do you know that can say that name? Not many, I bet.
The Greek Freak.
Yeah,
that's what I go with.
I think he's the best young player in the league, and they have solid depth all across the board. And I love the fact that they are still like the tallest team in the country out of any team in college and pros and whatnot. So yeah, Milwaukee, I love their size, and I love Giannis. What do you got number 4?
Number 4, I got the Raptors. I like the Bucks. I have them at number 5. I'll just give you a little sneak peek at that real quick because I do like them, but DeMar DeRozan is a more accomplished player at the moment than the Greek Freak. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I know I'm going to butcher it. And for that reason, if I'm giving my honest opinion, I don't think that any of these teams, except for the Cavaliers or Celtics, are going to have a chance of making the finals for the Eastern Conference this year. So it's really pick and choose where you're going to put them. I think they're pretty even 3 through at least 7.
Okay. Nick?
I had the Bucks as number 4 as well.
They copied me?
They had one of the least amount of moves as a team last year as well. The only person they added this offseason, besides rookies, was Gerald Green. And as a very young team last year, they did win 42 games. I think they're going to make another jump. The only reason I'm hesitant about putting them this high is because Jabari is going to be out until about February, and that's going to hurt them. But I think Chris Middleton will step up for them. Brogdon's been a very good player.
Brogdon's really good at it.
And I think Thon Maker will make a good contribution for them as well.
You gave your number 5 team already. You gave it as the Bucks. I have mine as the Miami Heat. This is my dark horse. Nick, you have the Miami Heat too?
well, I was gonna say that the Bucks are my dark horse team too.
Okay.
Because of the fact that they have the Greek Freak, and because he's so tall, he could play center if he wanted to.
No, he's a center
and
point
he's a
guard.
point guard.
Yeah.
So like he can go 1 through 5.
Yeah.
And I think that's a unique type of player in the league. And you never know. Say LeBron James gets hurt, I think that Giannis could take them to the next level.
All right. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with your opinion on Giannis. But Miami Heat, they're my dark horse team. I think their backcourt is really, really good. I love Dragic and I love Waiters this year. I've been hating on Waiters his entire career until he started balling out last year. And I was like, oh, wow, he actually is pretty decent. And their interior defense I like a lot. But if you want me to be honest about it, this team is screwed if Whiteside gets injured. What about you? What you got? You got the Heat?
We agree as well. I have the Heat, and I do have them as my dark horse team. I think, other than the Cavs, they are the best team equipped, especially in the backcourt, to be able to handle any kind of injuries this year.
Yeah.
They are extremely deep with Dragic, Tyler Johnson, Josh Richardson, Waiters, James Johnson. They picked up Olynyk this offseason. And of course with Whiteside, if he goes down, I do agree, will hurt them. They do have a rookie, Bam Adebayo. He's looked pretty good this preseason, and I think the Heat with their depth. I know in the playoffs they usually have shorter rotations, but that Heat team can pose a lot of problems on many different levels for a lot of teams.
Yes, and I also want to give a little bit of credit to Eric Spoelstra, because when he first came into the league and it was Pat Riley's disciple, we all thought, Pat Riley's just coaching this team from afar. But I think we've really seen Eric Spoelstra evolve as a coach. Like last year, they started out like 11-30, and they were still a really good team. What did they finish at?
30-11.
Yes, exactly. So I think that he has evolved as a coach, and I think having Eric Spoelstra is going to help the Miami Heat. My number 6 seed in the East, I have the Toronto Raptors. Yeah, DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry are still hella ballers, but the rest of the team I think is falling off. I don't like Valanciunas at all, and I don't think they really have much depth, to say the least. And the depth they do have, I don't think is worth anything. James, what do you got?
For my number 6 team, I got the Miami Heat.
Okay.
I think that you hit it right on the head. That Whiteside's a great player. He's going to be good enough to get him into the playoffs. But if he goes down, so does their season.
Right.
So
You got
My number 6 seed, and this is where we finally differ, Sean, is the Boston Celtics.
Wow.
I liked the Celtics a lot before this year, and I had them as my number 1 seed, as I said earlier. But losing Hayward really hurts their depth, and the players that'll be stepping in for him are going to be Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. And while they're very capable players, they're also very young, and all 23 or younger. So I think they're going to have a lot of growing pains this year. Brad Stevens is a wizard for sure. He's great at what he does, and he'll figure it out. But I think it's definitely going to take them some time.
Okay. Number 7 seed, I had the Philadelphia 76ers. If Embiid and Simmons can stay healthy, this team will be way better than the 7th seed, because I expect at least one of them to get injured, if not both. I expect this team to be the number 7 seed in the East. What do you got?
what about Markelle Fultz?
Yeah, Markelle Fultz. Okay, so I like Markelle Fultz, but he's good. But I think he is going to be the player out of their big three, or whatever you want to say. I think he's going to be the one that's going to be the bust. I do like that they got J.J. Redick. He is a reliable shooting guard. He will score three-pointers left and right. I do like that they got Bayless, and he's going to be the main point guard on this team. He's going to be the starting point guard. It's not going to be Markelle Fultz until he gets used to playing in the NBA a little bit. So I do like those additions to the team. But, yeah, Fultz, I think he is going to be the bust for that team.
Well, I have the 76ers as my seventh team as well.
Okay.
And I
Very
pretty much
good.
agree with everything you just said.
Okay. Nick, what do you got?
My 7th seed is the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets won 36 games last year. I think they're going to take a step up. They have added Michael Carter-Williams as a capable backup point guard where he should be. They added Dwight Howard, which is exactly what they need, some type of low post presence. Cody Zeller was all right for them last year, but I think Dwight will help them out even more. And I really like their lottery pick, Malik Monk. Can really help them as an outside shooter, and he's a capable defender as well. I think Batum going down hurts them a bit, and they will struggle a little bit out of the gate, but they do have players who could step in for him, like Marvin Williams, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist will be able to help them out as well.
All right, yeah, cool. I have Charlotte Hornets as my 8th seed. For many of the reasons you said, I do like Dwight Howard. They need that low post presence, and I do like Malik Monk. The thing why I have them 8th seed, I probably would have had him a couple notches higher if the Batum injury kind of scares me, and if he's going to be 100% when he comes back, or if they're going to rush him. And it's just so hard to tell with these teams and how they treat their players. Are they going to rush them? Are they going to make sure that they do their due diligence with their injuries? But if they can, I can see them really getting on a roll and being a higher seed than the 8th seed, but I definitely think they are going to be in the playoffs. I don't really see any other team in the East even really competing for that 8th seed. James, what do you got?
I got the Charlotte Hornets as well as my 8th seed.
You like being right.
I'm right the majority of the time, as our standings that we'll say this weekend tell in our head-to-head matchups. But anyway, that being said, I'm take a little shot there. The Charlotte Hornets. I love Kemba Walker. I love what he brings to the table. I think having a good point guard in the NBA goes a long way. Having Dwight Howard down there to grab rebounds, having that low post presence, I think, yes, it will be a big pickup for the Hornets. Losing Al Jefferson a couple years back was definitely a damper to their team. It's just surprising that Michael Jordan is their owner, and they have the best basketball player to ever live around them all the time. And he may not be their coach, but you think that they have this type of motivation, and I feel like the Hornets should have been getting better as the years have gone on.
Absolutely.
And they haven't been. And maybe they'll take that jump this year. I hope they do, because I like their team, but I see them being the number 8 seed.
All right, Nick, who you got as the 8th seed?
Well, you guys are talking about being right, but I think you both are wrong, because here comes a major homer alert. The Orlando Magic are going to be the 8th seed.
Who?
The Orlando Hey, you might not know them now.
I've never heard of them.
They still got a team down there?
With that Disney sponsor.
I thought they were in the MLS.
Oh, tell us why you think the Orlando Magic are going to be.
The Orlando Magic won 29 games last year.
That's pretty good for them.
I didn't even know they had a team last year. So.
A perpetual lottery team is finally going to pay off for them this year. I am extremely high on our lottery pick, Jonathan Isaac. I think Frank Vogel is going to experiment with him at the 5 this year, playing center. He's a Kevin Durant light. Obviously, that's my expectations are higher than most on him.
Okay.
And I think playing Aaron Gordon finally at the 4 instead of the 3 this season is going to help tremendously. And he's been absolutely amazing this preseason. We also added Jonathan Simmons from the Spurs. He wasn't the greatest three-point shooter, but he did show some promise, especially as a defender, which is what we need. And we do have a lot of length on this team as well. And we brought in bigs like Aaron Aflalo. And we brought in veteran presence like Aaron Aflalo and Maurice Spates. And most importantly, we got rid of Jeff Green. That's at least worth 5 wins right there.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So I just want to run through my Eastern Conference just one more time, 1 through 8, and then I'm going to give you my playoff picks here. I'm just going to roll right through them. I have Cleveland 1, Washington 2, Boston 3, Milwaukee 4, Miami 5, Toronto 6, Philadelphia 7, and Charlotte 8. So I have Cleveland and Charlotte going head-to-head in the first round, 1 versus 8. I think that's going to be clearly Cleveland in 4. Like I said before, I don't love Charlotte's team this year. The Batum injury really does scare me. If that ends up being okay, then I think there will be a higher seed, and that matchup won't even happen. But as of now, I have Cleveland and Charlotte, Cleveland in 4. We have Washington against Philly, 2 versus 7. I have Washington in 6. I think the young guns for Philadelphia is going to really give Washington a lot of trouble in a couple of games because Washington doesn't have that depth, and I think Philly does. But Washington's still going to pull it out in the end. Washington in 6. Boston versus Toronto, I have Boston in 6. Look, the Hayward injury hurts, but I don't think it hurts enough to where they're going to lose to the Raptors. Like I said, I think Tatum and Brown are going to be playmakers this year, and I think they're really going to get a chance to actually grow this season. And then Milwaukee versus Miami, the 4 versus 5. I do have Milwaukee in this. I have Milwaukee in 5, actually. And because Giannis Antetokounmpo and the fact that they're just so big and the fact that they can have anybody go against Hassan Whiteside without being afraid that he's going to block the hell out of them. So I have Cleveland, Washington, Boston, Milwaukee all moving on. Cleveland versus Milwaukee in the second round. Cleveland is going to win that in 5 easily. The Antetokounmpo matchup, the height for Milwaukee is not going to be any problem for Cleveland. Cleveland has a hell of a lot of depth. I have Washington beating Boston. Washington is going to be in 7. This is where the Hayward injury is finally going to hurt Boston, and I think the Washington starters will finally pull this out. And then I have Cleveland, Washington. Cleveland, I think, is just going to roll right through the Wizards in 5 games. Washington, like I said, they have no bench. Cleveland in the finals. What do you got, James?
Let me make this easy for you. Cleveland versus Boston this year, Eastern Conference Finals.
The other teams, you don't even...
There's no chance. Maybe there's a possibility that the Wizards will take that spot, and it'll be Wizards-Cavs.
Okay.
Slight possibility, but for the same reason you just mentioned, their bench is short. Kyrie Irving has experience, and I truly believe that he has enough experience to at least get Boston through the Eastern Conference to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay.
To play the Cavs, I don't think that they'll have enough ultimately, but yeah, I don't think that teams 3 pretty much through 8 have any shot. It's plain and simple for me.
All right, Nick, what do you got?
All right, so my 1 versus 8 is the Cavs versus the Magic. As much as I'd love to believe in my team, I think the Cavs take that quite easily. The Cavs have destroyed the Magic within the last 4 years that we had any semblance of the same team that we do now. My 2 versus 7, I think the Wizards take it pretty easily over the Hornets in 5 games. I just love what John Wall brings to the table, and he's going to hound Kemba Walker. My 3 versus 6, I have the Raptors over the Celtics in 7. I think that series could honestly...
Crazy.
I think that could go either way. I agree with you, James. I think having Kyrie on that team is great, and I love the ball movement that Brad Stevens promotes on his team. I just think the youth of the Celtics is not going to be able to get him over the Wizards or over the Raptors. And my 4 versus 5, I have the Bucks versus the Heat. I have the Bucks taking that in 7 games. I think the length is what ultimately plays the part against the Heat, and the Heat have a lot of different ball handlers that they can go with. But I think defensively the Bucks can do a good job of locking them down. My 1 versus 4, I have the Cavs over the Bucks in 6. I think, as you said, the length of the Bucks is going to be great, but the Cavs' 3-point shooting is just going to be too much for the Bucks. They're trading 3s for 2s, and the Cavs will win that all day. I have the Wiz over the Raptors in my 2 versus 3. I have the Wiz in 6. John Wall will outplay Lowry. Neither have a terrific bench, but I just think the Wiz starting 5 will be able to take them over the top. And in the Eastern Conference Finals, I have the Cavs beating the Wizards in 5. I don't think it'll be particularly close. The Cavs will go to their 4th straight finals. Nothing surprising here.
So all 3 of us have the Cavs going to the finals this
Yes.
year.
It's all a matter of who they beat.
Now, that's what I was getting at earlier in this podcast, is that we all predicted the same team to go for the 4th straight year.
Yes.
Now, where is the parity? I want to see a little bit more parity. I want to see another team in there. I want to see an upset. I want to see more teams on an even scale level. But what I want to add to that I haven't mentioned is that I have LeBron James taking home the MVP again this year. And I say again because he's won it before, but it's been a while.
Okay.
And he's the best player in the league every year, and he doesn't win the MVP every year. But this year, I believe that he's going to bring his team back to the top. And not that they'll have a better record than the Warriors, but I think that they'll be more of a force. And last year, we're watching the Cavs in the regular season, and people started to question in the middle of the season whether this is the same Cavs team. Do they have the same heart? I don't think that will be a question this year. I think LeBron is going to take another step in his legacy and really bring home another MVP and really cement being the number 2 player of all time.
Two things I want to bring up here to what you just said. One, do you think the Cavs are going to have more than 55 wins?
No.
See, that's the problem with the winning the MVP trophy. I don't think if he does win the MVP trophy, it'll be because the Cavs have close to 60 wins. And if they don't have close to that number, people are going to be like, wow, you really underperformed in the regular season this year like you did last year. You have no business winning the MVP award, even though he is the best player in the league, but that's not how the award is voted on in most years.
And if he doesn't win it this year because of that, and let's say somebody on the Warriors wins it, unless one of them has a ridiculous season, how could somebody from that team physically win the most valuable player when they're playing with 4 people who could win it?
No,
you know what I mean?
No, that's a fair point.
So like, yes, he may have Dwayne Wade now on the team again, but Dwayne Wade is not the same Dwayne Wade that he played with in 2010 on the Heat. You know what I mean? Dwayne Wade's going on, 34, 35 years old? I'm pretty sure it's 34. He's getting older. LeBron, I think even if they win 55 games or 53 games, he can still bring home that trophy because his numbers on a daily basis, I think, could bring home that trophy. What did he have last night? 29, 16, and 9? Almost a triple-double on opening night. He almost had 20 rebounds, almost 20 on opening night. I mean, and he's only getting older. It's mind-blowing to me. And I think that this year is going to be a special year for LeBron. Whether he wins the championship or not, I think that this is going to be his best season as a pro.
And it's funny, too, because last year was one of his most efficient seasons ever, and it just seems like he's getting better and better. But it's funny because, like, the greatest player of our time is getting better and better, but we keep saying Westbrook's better, Kawhi Leonard's better, James Harden's better, yada, yada, Steph Curry's better, Kevin Durant, whatever, whoever.
Something that also that, and I heard this, and I mentioned to you this before the podcast. Now, the one thing that I keep hearing is that we should appreciate the greatness that we're watching, right?
Absolutely.
And we're witnessing history, and I do appreciate it. But in my mind, it's not greatness if all the greatness is on one team. Where's your competition? You know what I mean? Michael Jordan didn't become the best because he played against crappy competition. He became the best because he beat the best every single time.
Well,
he became the best because he beat the best.
You could look at LeBron James throughout his time, and you could see all the great teams he's beat. He had to deal with the big 3 Celtics, and he overcame them. He had to deal with a very tough Pacers team who defensively locked everybody down, changed his LeBron's entire approach, and then, of course, beating the 73-9 Warriors. Well, not to mention the Spurs teams that he beat. Exactly, and then of course beating. I mean, the Thunder were young when they were in the finals, but it's just still going up against 4 amazing players in Westbrook, Harden, Durant.
The greatest team that ever was.
Well, don't get me wrong, and I totally agree with that. I think that the finals is the history, is what we're witnessing. But up until the finals, are we truly witnessing history? Are we truly witnessing LeBron being the greatest player? How could we put him over Jordan when he's not playing against the competition, he's playing with the competition? What Kyrie did was out of the box, but everybody's doing the exact opposite of that. He went and joined Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. He brought in Derrick Rose and Kevin Love. You know what I mean? He's bringing all these players in to play with him instead of playing against him.
Well,
and I think I'm talking about a whole season.
No, and I understand that, but the difference is back then it was the GMs that brought the players together. Like, Jordan would have never done it without Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, but Jordan didn't go get those players, but the GM actually did his job and got those players. Nowadays, the GM doesn't do his job to get those players. The players have to do it themselves.
Well, yeah, I know, and I think that the GMs need to do their jobs. That's what they're
like. Danny Ainge is the only real active GM in the league.
I agree.
I'd say Morey as well.
Morey is he's a
LeBron
great
is the
GM.
GM of Cleveland. Let's be real.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what the thing is that I don't know how to describe it. Was Scottie Pippen? Could you say Scottie Pippen was as good as Dwayne Wade is? Or was he more of a role player? who became the player he was because he played along Jordan.
Well, you could look at the time when Jordan was out, those couple of years. Scottie Pippen still brought those teams to the playoffs.
But he also played with Jordan before that.
But when one thing that I would like to say that really puts a damper on a lot of the Jordan is the greatest argument is that when he left, they went from being like a 57 win team to like a 56 win team the year after he left. Like they were still like they were one win worse without Jordan.
I think that the biggest thing is that I try to be a realist. Like, let's be real. Michael Jordan does not have the talent that LeBron James has. LeBron James is the most talented basketball player to ever step foot on the court.
Agreed.
But Michael Jordan has had that willpower that LeBron does not have.
I agree with that as well.
Okay, there's nothing. Okay, and this is something that I've really harped on, especially since a personal experience happened. And I went to see. I'm a Bulls fan. I went to see Derrick Rose while he was still, before injury prone, play the Heat down here in 2012. I believe it was the season that right before he tore his ACL.
2010.
No. So it was right after he tore his ACL.
Okay.
And then it was right after he tore his ACL, and LeBron James didn't play because of a broken nose. Michael Jordan went out and played with a flu, 100 and some odd fever, and put up ridiculous numbers that game. There's just something that brought him over the top. You can't say it's titles because people have more titles than him. But he's 6-0 in the finals. He's got 6 finals MVPs. I think that is what puts him over the top, and that's what's never going to be broken is because I don't think anybody's going to have that willpower that he brought. It's just unheard of.
I have a couple points to that. One, a lot of people will say Jordan mainly did it by himself, and I highly disagree with that.
I disagree too.
Because Pippen was one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, look at Jordan couldn't get over that Celtics and Pistons hump until Pippen really got there, and their big three was with Rodman, one of the greatest defenders and rebounders of
who
all
won
time.
Titles before Jordan.
Yeah.
He didn't Rodman didn't need Jordan. Jordan needed Rodman.
And every Batman needs his Robin.
Yeah, precisely.
But that being said, you don't need Batman and Robin Jr. and Robin the Third and Robin the Fourth. Okay? That's where we're at in the NBA now, and that's what I mean about joining forces and joining the competition. There are too many stars on each team rather than just one or two and having, all right, this is our team, this is our team, this is our team, this is our team. More of a competition.
But why are you? It seems like you're anti-player going to where the player wants to go. Would you say yes or no?
I just think that it's too friendly. Like,
because
there has to be competition.
Because let me put it in modern day, like in just simple man's terms, like what we deal with all the time is like if you were to get a job somewhere and you worked there for a while, but everybody else who worked there sucked. And you were getting paid decent, but then across the street there's a rival company where everybody there is really good and they're willing to pay you even more money. Why wouldn't you go to that company and work for them when the boss is better, the GM is better, everybody you work with is a lot better at their job, they're all friendly, they have a snack bar that you can get free snacks from.
But I think what I'm trying to get at is that I think that there should be each company. There should be more. It should be more equal.
But they're not all created equally.
Well, no, obviously not.
Look at the Magic.
It should never be all. It should never be all equal. But I'm saying that right now, we all agreed that there's no chance, pretty much, that another team out of the Eastern Conference, besides the Cavaliers, are coming out of the East this year.
Correct.
And how could you? Now let me ask you another question. Going back 2, 3, 4 years. Can you say the same thing? Because for the last 4 years, the Cavaliers were the pick to come out of the East. Last 3 years, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now being fourth, they've come out each year. How is that? Where's the suspense of the season?
It's all in the Western Conference.
And even over there, it's just starting to come back.
Yes.
But that's what I want to see, is what we saw in the Western Conference this year. Okay? Even if it's just 4 or 5 good teams, it's better than just having one ridiculous team. Because it just brings more competition to each playoff round. Instead of we all know that the Golden State Warriors and Cavaliers are going to win 4 straight games in the playoffs to start the playoffs, and it shouldn't be like that.
Well, also I think it depends on how big of a basketball fan you are, because if you are a moderate basketball fan, which I assume a lot of basketball fans are, they only care about the big teams playing each other, then you're not really going to care this season until like the semifinals in the Eastern Conference and maybe the round before in the West. But if you are a die-hard basketball fan, you're going to want to see how good the Lakers are this year. You're going to want to see how good the Sixers are this year, and these young developing players, because having those teams be decent is what is going to end up bringing this league back together.
Yeah, it brings the excitement.
But it's also funny because the NBA has never been watched more than it is right now.
And it's because of the super teams,
and
it's bringing money in. So I mean, it's not going to stop. But for the average sports fan or a sports fan in general, I think that it could do wonders. I don't know. It's such a confusing topic to talk about because you can go in so many different directions with it.
I have a cross-sport comparison for LeBron over the last 8 years or so. If anyone watches the UFC, I'd like to compare him to Demetrius Johnson. He's the flyweight champion, and he has just broken Anderson Silva's record of title defenses in a row. And the main knock against him is because he doesn't have a lot of competition. Now, is that a product of his division being weak, much like LeBron's conference being weak, or is that because they are so great that they make everybody else look mediocre? And that's where I think appreciating what that individual does, LeBron with his team and Demetrius Johnson against any opponent he faces, is to see their greatness and how they make other good teams look average because of how effortlessly and flawlessly they play the sport.
That's an interesting point because, in my opinion, the NBA has more talent now than it ever did, and I think a lot of people that I know don't watch basketball now because they don't feel that way, because they feel like, oh, it's just LeBron and whatever team he's on, that's the team, and then the Warriors. But if you really look at each team 1 through 12, I think there's more talent on every single team now than there was 25 years ago.
I don't disagree that there's more talent in the NBA right now. I just don't think it's spread out.
Yeah, it's absolutely not spread out. But like, what are you gonna do? Tell LeBron he can't play anymore? Like LeBron, like, whatever team LeBron goes on, if he went to the 76ers today, the 76ers would be the favorite to win the East.
Oh, I agree completely.
So it's just like, I mean, but if you threw him in the Western Conference, that's the only way it would be even mildly interesting, as long as you didn't go to the Warriors, and then the East would be completely wide open after that. But you can't just say, oh, because like I agree with you, Nick, that LeBron is making the league look easy, even though it's really not. And it's interesting when people talk about this, they like slay all of LeBron's accomplishments. Like he didn't play certain teams at their hardest or whatever. But if you really look at the teams that that LeBron had to face in the finals, I think the easiest team that he faced in the finals was the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that Oklahoma City Thunder team, I think, is better than any team that Jordan faced in the finals. Like back then, the Eastern Conference was what the Western Conference is now. You had to get over that Eastern Conference hump, and then whoever you faced in the West, you were going to beat.
But the fact that he made it through the East, LeBron
But he didn't make it through the East though. Like he failed so many times until he got help. Just like LeBron. LeBron failed so many times until he got help, but he didn't get help from his GM. He went and got the help himself.
But he went and got through what would be LeBron getting help and going through the West right now, which is something he hasn't done. But I'm not arguing that LeBron's not great. And
no,
I didn't even
not.
think about the point you brought up about how if maybe LeBron is making everybody else look bad in a sense, because he's a freak athlete. I've never seen, he can play football, he can play basketball, he can play UFC, he can do anything he wanted. He's 6'8", he's a freak of nature, right? But it's not that the competition, he has beat the Celtics. He's proven time and time again. And nobody's going to take away being the best basketball player of this generation. And something I also agree with a lot of people is that you can't compare Jordan and LeBron because 2 different generations. You know, like maybe the competition and there's more stars in the league now, but the game is also softer now than it was when Jordan played, and people were allowed to throw the body around a little bit, and the refs didn't blow the whistle every 2 seconds.
And of course, there was no zone defenses back then as well, which completely alters it.
And the hand check now.
It's 2 totally different games, so I don't want to take anything away from LeBron, but I just thought it was. I guess you can look at it from both ways. That I thought it was curious that are we really witnessing greatness, or are they playing with the competition, or are they just really making everybody else look just that bad? I guess you can look at it from both ways.
I mean, another example you could bring up. I know not many people watch golf, but like Tiger Woods, he literally dominated the sport for like 10 or 15 years. But now nobody's really dominating it. But you see,
it's kind of lost touch.
Yeah, it's lost touch. But there's a lot of really good golfers nowadays that one wins one major, the next one wins the next major, and there's probably like 6 or 7 like really good golfers that are all on the same level. But like that's not what you're saying. That's what you're saying you want for basketball. But as we see, golf is worse now than it was with just Tiger Woods.
Yeah, I guess it's such a difficult medium to find, and that's why the NBA is not going to change. But I guess it goes both ways, because I like seeing the stars, but I also want to see more parity, because, and maybe I'm biased. I'm a huge hockey fan, and I like the fact.
Hockey, there's so much parity. Like you could be the
Blackhawks,
Nashville Predators, exactly. Yes.
And go to the Stanley Cup and win it in 2013 and 15, and be a first-round exit in 2014.
Yeah.
I just love that suspense. You really don't know who's going to make it, and I just love that about
baseball's kind of the same way.
And that's, you know what, and baseball's long. You don't have to watch 162 games.
Yeah.
When it comes down to the playoffs, you have to watch, because it's too entertaining, it's too suspenseful, and football's the same way. That's why I love it, and I want basketball to get back to that. But I want to move on. I want to go to the Western Conference.
Yeah, what we've all been waiting to talk about here. This is the real conversation.
All right. So I'm going to start it off. I just want to shoot through my first 4 teams really quick. Warriors 1, Thunder 2, Rockets 3, Spurs 4. Really quickly, Warriors, nobody's taking them over the top spot, right? Do we all agree on that?
Yeah, agree completely. Okay. And they got deeper.
They got deeper.
Crazy.
What I like the Thunder in the number 2, because they added Melo and Paul George. Paul George is a great three-point shooter, and he's a phenomenal defender. Okay, it's going to hide Melo's deficiencies on the defensive side of the ball with the defensive team that we were talking about this earlier. How they have Steven Adams, they have Robertson, they have all these players that are good defensively, and Melo can just be Melo and shoot the ball and be offensive. I love that team now. Biggest threat to the Warriors, Rockets. I don't know how it's going to work, but they have so much talent. I truly don't. I don't know about as much about basketball as I do about the other sport. I know a decent amount, but not as much to know how are they going to fit James Harden and Chris Paul. How is that going to work as a team?
I mean, if you saw, I know you didn't see last night, but I mean, they both had over 10 assists.
If they can continue that, then I love this team. But I want to see it, throughout. How are they is Harden going to get pissed? Is Chris Paul going to get pissed? They both want to dominate the ball. And the Spurs. You can't count the Spurs out, but I think that some teams have jumped ahead of them now. They have lost some players, and they are an aging roster at the moment still. But you can't count them out of your top 4.
Nick, what do you got?
My top 4, Warriors number 1. They won 67 last year. I think they take another jump. I think they win 70 this year, even with losing that first game. Their bench is just amazing. They have amazing starting 5, best starting 5 in the league, and now the best bench in the league, even got better. Rockets I have at number 2. I love the James Harden and Chris Paul the combo of them, because what D'Antoni was saying, he's going to have them play 18 minutes together and then have one of those two on the floor at all times. And Chris Paul on the Clippers did play a bit of a slower pace than the Rockets do, but surrounding him with three-point shooters and surrounding James Harden with three-point shooters is amazing for them. And then bringing in PJ Tucker as a good three-point shooter and defender as well. I love the Rockets this year. 3, I have the Thunder. I have them winning 10 more games than last year, and yes, that's because of adding Paul George, Melo, and Patrick Patterson. I agree with you completely. Having Melo be the Melo of the Olympics is nothing but amazing for him. That's where he's going to thrive. He can be a spot-up shooter, be a good rebounder for them, for one of the best rebounding teams in the league already. And I think the Thunder pose a real threat in this Western Conference. My 4 seed, I agree with you, Spurs. Spurs will take a little bit of a step back with everybody getting a year older. They did bring in Rudy Gay, which I like. However, with the Achilles injury is a little concerning, but it adds length to them, and hopefully this Kawhi injury is not as bad as everybody thinks it may be.
You just can never count out a team that's coached by Pop.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I just like you guys, I have the Warriors number 1, duh. And then number 2, I have the Houston Rockets. I love the Houston Rockets. Like everything you said, I agree with. I just want to add on the 3-point shooters for this team make them scary good, and I think it makes them a real competition against the Warriors.
Now, who's a better three-point shooting team, the Warriors or the Rockets?
Well, that's the biggest question, and I think if you just look at it on paper, the Warriors have the better 3-point shooting team, but the Rockets just have pure spot-up shooters that are going to just be able to hang out at the 3-point line, and they have 2 point guards on their team that can create offense. And the fact that they're going to run the offense the way that they're going to run it, I think it's going to be really beneficial to them. I love this team in the regular season, but I don't love D'Antoni teams in the playoffs because they don't play any damn defense. Even if they bring in defensive players, they turn those defensive players into offensive players, and it just doesn't end up working out. But I do like the Rockets to be the number 2 seed. This is where I differ from you guys. I have San Antonio number 3. This is what happens with San Antonio. When you think they're going to be the best team in the league, that's usually when they kind of take a step back. When you start underestimating them and you have them as the 4th seed, like you guys have, that's when they really start playing well, when they're under the radar. That's, I think, where they thrive. I think Kawhi Leonard's going to have another amazing year. I actually have him as my MVP because I think the Spurs are going to win 60-plus games this season. I think the top 3 seeds in the West are all going to have over 60 wins this season. So I have, and he's going to be the team player that leads that team. I think Aldridge will take a step forward. I think he's going to fit into the offense a lot better, and I like the Rudy Gay signing as well. The only problem I have with the Spurs is who's going to play point guard and who's going to play point guard consistently well. But they will figure that out at the playoffs. I mean, we saw them against the Rockets in that Game 6 where Kawhi was out, and we're like, okay, Houston's definitely going to win this game. It's going to go to Game 7, and what happens? The Spurs end up winning and just completely shock the Rockets. James Harden has a bad game. So that's why I like San Antonio so much. They're such a playoff team. And then I have Oklahoma City at 4. Like you guys said, if Carmelo Anthony is the Carmelo Anthony of the Olympics, he's going to be absolutely amazing. But I could see this being a problem, especially the first couple of weeks, where it's going to take some adjustment for them to really getting to play well together. And I want to see how Paul George really accepts his role, because I think he's going to have less stats than he normally does. But if he's willing to be okay with that and play some defense, which is what the team is really going to need, then this could be one of the most dangerous teams in the NBA. But I would also like to say, right below Oklahoma City, I think just if you have Oklahoma City as a 1B team, I think Minnesota is right there with them. I love Minnesota's additions of Jimmy Butler and Jeff Teague, and I think the 2 young guns they have on that team are really going to propel this team forward. I don't want to say they're going to be competing against the Warriors for the championship or anything, because they're so young and they've never played together, so I don't really know anything about them. But I love that they have the defensive coach in Tibbs, because they're actually going to play some defense. He's teaching these young guns how to play defense. And Jimmy Butler, he played for him back in Chicago, so I love that dynamic as well.
Tibbs brought Jimmy Butler as the 30th pick.
Yeah, exactly.
And brought him to be a superstar.
And Butler bought in, and I think having that veteran presence with Butler is going to really it's going to be a great influence on Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. And I think Jeff Teague is an above average point guard, and I think he's going to be able to facilitate the ball really well for all the shooters on that team. So yes, I have Minnesota 5, but I could see them being 4 and Oklahoma City 5, depending on how the season works out. You want to continue going with yours?
Yeah. So I'm going to pick up 5 through 8. Now 5 and 6, it's weird. 5 and 6, I feel like you can switch if you wanted, and 7 and 8, you can switch if you wanted. So 5, I got the Timberwolves for the same reasons that you just said. They're so young, so I can't put them in my top 4 yet. But they're so talented. Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler. I know they have to give up some talent like Zach LaVine and Chris Dunn in the trade for Jimmy Butler. But I see them moving in a positive direction. Tibbs is going to get the ball rolling. They underperformed last year majorly, but them and the Trailblazers, who are my number 6 team, I feel like are right neck and neck with each other. They're hit or miss. If Dame and when Dame and McCollum are off, who is on that team who can pick up that slack? I don't see a next person up, and that's why, like you mentioned it earlier in this podcast, Nick, that if it was a 1-game series and they got hot against the Warriors, they could beat them. That's how talented the Trailblazers are. That's how talented the Timberwolves are. Every team on this list, besides my 7th and 8th teams, and even one of my 7th or 8th team in the Pelicans, I think, are talented enough to beat them in a 1-game series. But there's just not enough there, and with that being said, it's kind of like the same in the East. I don't see anybody from the bottom 4 making it past the first round. Clippers, I'm going to bring in at number 7. Losing Chris Paul is big, but if Blake can stay healthy, he's one hell of a player. And you still have DJ. You have the NBA is a players' league, but it's also a big man's league too, in a sense. And if you have big men, it's a shooters' league too. I know it goes in so many different ways, but I think that the Clippers will just sneak in, even though they lost Chris Paul. And the Pelicans, I don't know how I have them at number 8. They added Rondo, which is probably horrible for that team in the long run, but they got Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins. Why is this team at my 8th seed? Why aren't they higher up?
Well, I think it's because they don't have that consistent point guard play. And yes, they added Rondo, but Drew Holiday has largely underperformed since he left Philadelphia.
And he's been injured as well.
Exactly. So, like, if he can play well, then this team, the the Pelicans are going to be up there.
They easily have 2 of at least a top 5 player in the game in Anthony Davis, in my opinion, and maybe a top 10 player in DeMarcus Cousins, considering he can hit a 3. As well as be so dominant inside. So, and on the defensive side of the ball, but 1 through 8, it's pretty stacked over there in the Western Conference.
All right, Nick, what do you got?
My 5 seed, I have the Denver Nuggets. I have them winning 9 more games than last year. They won 40. They almost made the playoff last year, and I think this Paul Millsap signing he will fit perfectly next to Jokic. Jokic is going to take another step forward. Gary Harris is going to take another step forward. I think Jamal Murray will take another step forward as well. They have a lot of young players and a lot of depth on this team that can really sustain them throughout the regular season and maybe even make some noise in the playoffs as well. My number 6 seed, I have the Los Angeles Clippers. They were one of the teams with the most turnover this season, obviously losing Chris Paul, losing Jamal Crawford, which I think will help them in the long run, and losing J.J. Redick will hurt, but they did pick up Patrick Beverley. They picked up the European point guard, Milos. They picked up Danilo. If he can stay healthy, he's the small forward that they need next to Blake and DeAndre, and Lou Williams, which I think he's about the same level as a Jamal Crawford, but the Clippers definitely pose a threat, especially if they run through Blake at the high post. I think they can be a dangerous team. I have the Timberwolves at number 7. The Timberwolves I have making a 13-game increase in wins this season, going from 31 to 44. I think the one place the Timberwolves messed up was they ended up getting rid of Rubio. What they should have done instead of getting Jeff Teague was trade Rubio for George Hill. I think that would have been a perfect swap for both teams because Teague had his best season on the Hawks when he was a primary ball handler. He's not going to be the primary ball handler with Wiggins, with Jimmy Butler, with Karl Anthony Towns. And the Timberwolves have shown they love to run their offense through the high post with Karl Anthony Towns. And Teague isn't the greatest off-ball shooter. And again, with all that turnover that they have, it's going to be an adjustment period for them. Like I said, they're still winning a lot more games than last season, but I don't think it's enough to get them into the top 6 seeds in the West. My 8 seed can go to any of the Grizzlies, Jazz, Blazers, or Pelicans. I do have the Grizzlies in as my 8 seed. They lost Tony Allen, which he was a good defender, but it hurts them in their spacing. And then they're going to lean more on Conley and Gasol this season, get more spacing out of JaMychal Green. They brought in Ben McLemore, who can be a promising shooter for them, and Tyreek as another ball handler. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz got the 8th seed, or the Blazers, or the Pelicans.
Wow. Nick, that was some good stuff. You just went all in on that right there.
Well, you know what? That's why he's our senior basketball insider.
That's why we brought him. So yeah, I had Minnesota as my number 5 team. After the things you just said, I might want to drop them down a little bit. But I have number 6. I had the Portland Trailblazers. I love their backcourt, CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. And their center, Nurkic, I freaking love him. He only played a little bit of time last year, but when he played, he was a baller. That's why I have Portland number 6. Number 7, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. It is time for this team to step up. Drew Holiday, you need to stop being so damn injured, and you need to be the point guard you were going to be if you just stayed in Philadelphia. And DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis, you need to play together as a team and prove that all Kentucky players that go to the NBA aren't busts, that they are good players and they are going to have success in the league. Because right now, Kentucky players, you can write the NBA story without mentioning a single Kentucky player having a real impact in the NBA. You guys need to change that right now. And I think you will, being the number 7 seed in the West. Number 8 seed, my number 1 surprise right here is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers.
Wow.
Yes, Lonzo Ball is going to change this team around. He's not going to be a good shooter, not until next year or maybe the year after. But he can facilitate the ball like Magic Johnson. I know it's too early to be saying he's like Magic Johnson, but he can facilitate the ball like Magic Johnson. I think he's going to make those younger...
Stop it, LeVar.
Yo, he can beat Michael Jordan one-on-one. I can beat Michael Jordan one-on-one in basketball game. But no, look, I think Lonzo Ball is going to be that guy that he can really dish it out to the players and make them a lot better. I think Julius Randle, he's going to make a lot better. And Brandon Ingram, who I think is going to emerge as a real star this year. I like the addition of Lonzo Ball with him. Without him, I would not have picked the Lakers to be this good. But I was saying this from the very beginning of the season last year with UCLA and how good they look. And I really think Lonzo Ball, not LeVar Ball, Lonzo Ball is going to be the guy who really turns the Lakers around. I do want to give a shout out a little bit to Denver because I do think Denver is going to be a very, very good team this year, and they're going to be that team where if they were in the Eastern Conference, they would make the playoffs. So yeah, going against my rant here that I wish they were in it, but hey.
If you look at my number 7 seed, I actually scribbled out Nuggets and put in Clippers there as a last-minute change. So I do agree with you.
Yeah,
that the Nuggets are a healthy mention.
And the reason why I love the Nuggets is because of Jokic. I just love the way he plays the game of basketball, and I really think that he will elevate the team to a place where they're going to be competing for that 8th seed in the East. And I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Lakers out, but I just don't think they will. What do you got for the playoffs?
All right, so I'm gonna make this simple like I did for the East.
Okay. Do you think it's going to be this as simple?
No, not as simple. I'm going to go straight to my Western Conference semifinals. It's going to be the Warriors versus the Timberwolves, who I have upsetting the Spurs in the first round.
That's foolish.
And I have the Thunder versus Rockets, and I have the Thunder versus Warriors.
Okay.
And I have the Warriors versus Cavs.
Okay.
And should I spill the beans?
Yes.
I have the Warriors winning it all.
Okay.
Once again.
Okay. Nick, what do you got?
No surprise there.
No surprise at all. Real quick, Sean, I want to bring to your point because a lot of people might laugh at that Lakers pick. There's also more talent on there than you even mentioned. You have Brook Lopez. They brought in KCP. They have Jordan Clarkson. They have Larry Nance and Kuzma. There's no short of talent on the Lakers. And if they start clicking with Luke Walton as their coach, they could be
young coach.
They could be pushing for that 8th seed.
Well, and one thing I think was I don't know how the Lakers were able to do this, but they were able to get rid of D'Angelo Russell for something. Like Brook Lopez is a real player, and the fact that they got him is kind of mind-boggling to me. Like, what the hell are the Nets doing? But that's neither here nor there because they're not going to be a relevant team for years to come.
I agree with you there. And now for my West picks, I have the Warriors just demolishing the Grizzlies in 4 games. I have the Rockets over the Timberwolves in 5. I just think you'll be trading 2s for 3s in that, and the Rockets will run the T-Wolves off the court. I have the Thunder over the Clippers in 5 games there. Again, same thing, trading 2s for 3s. The Thunder were the worst three-point shooting team in the league last year. Adding Melo and Paul George will definitely help them in that category. And I have the Spurs over the Nuggets in 6, closing out my 4 versus 5 matchup. I have in the second round, I have the Warriors pretty handily beating the Spurs in 5. No matter how good Pop is, no matter how good Kawhi is, there's just not much you can do against this deep Warriors team. And I have the Thunder over the Rockets in a very, very close 7-game series. And I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way. The Western Conference Finals, I think the Warriors beat the Thunder in 6. I will say this, though. I think the Thunder match up the best out of any team in the NBA against the Warriors because of their length. James, like you brought up earlier, having Roberson, having Paul George, Westbrook with his length, Adams is a good pick and roll defender, Patrick Patterson now as well. They can switch on almost anything, and they're again a really good rebounding team as well. So they do pose some matchup problems against the Warriors, but the Warriors unfortunately will be back in the finals against the Cavs and beat them in 5.
Yeah, I am mimicking you guys in a lot of the picks here. I have the Warriors just completely obliterating the Lakers in 4 games. It won't even be close. Sorry, Alonzo, you're not that
It's
good
great
yet.
experience for the Lakers, though.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be a great experience for them. I have Houston also demolishing the Pelicans. I think that's going to be 4 games. I mean, they're the great. I think they're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league, and the Pelicans, they don't shoot. They're not going to be shooting 3s at all. So, like you said, Nick, 3s for 2s. You take the 3s every time. Spurs, I have them over the Portland Trail Blazers. I think that's going to be in 5 games. I think Portland's going to be able to steal a game at home in Game 3 on that. It would be really tough for the Spurs to just completely shut out the Blazers with the Blazers backcourt there. But I think the Spurs are going to take that in 5 because of the way they're able to play defense. And my biggest upset here is I actually have the Thunder losing to the Minnesota Timberwolves as my 4-5 matchup. I think that's going to go 7 games. And I actually think Minnesota is going to have more depth for that playoff series. And I think they're going to play some defense. I don't think the Thunder will be... I don't think Carmelo's going to be playing defense. I don't think Westbrook's going to be playing defense. And I think they're really going to have to rely on Paul George, and they're really going to have to rely on Steven Adams. And Roberson, yes, he is a great defender, but he is such a liability offensively that they're going to have to take him out and bring him back in at opportune times. And I don't think it's going to end up working out when Minnesota has everybody on their team is going to be a good defender with Tibbs as their coach. Then in the next round, I have Golden State. They're going to handle Minnesota very easily. I think they're going to handle them in 4 games. Golden State is clearly the best team in the league. They're going to handle them in 4 games. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, they can all shoot the 3. And that's basically going to be the story of that series. Houston and San Antonio, 2 versus 3. I have San Antonio winning this. And yes, Houston, I would love them playing any other team but the Spurs. But the fact of the matter is, D'Antoni's teams, they don't play defense. As many points as they score, it doesn't matter because when you're in the playoffs, it's a lot different. It's not just a regular season matchup. If they played in the regular season, Houston would probably demolish them in a one game competition here and there. But when Popovich can make adjustments, that is when Popovich is his best, and that is when D'Antoni is honestly his absolute worst. I have the Spurs winning this series, that series in 6 games. They have the better defense. And then I have Golden State over San Antonio. Yes, unfortunately, my Kawhi Leonard is not going to be able to pull it off over the Golden State Warriors. But it's going to be in 6 games this year. If Kawhi Leonard stays healthy, they are going to drag the series out, and it's finally going to be the series that we've all been dying to see for the past 3 or 4 years. Last year we had it until... don't even get me started on Zaza Pachulia, scumbag. But anyway, if he decides not to be a scumbag, then we will have the most amazing basketball series that we could ever imagine between Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs. However, I do think it's going to be in 6 games. And just like everybody else, Cleveland and Golden State. However, I am taking the Cleveland Cavaliers in 7 games, assuming.
Can I ask you a question?
What's up?
Do you actually believe that?
Yes, I do. If Isaiah Thomas comes back and he is the Isaiah Thomas that he was last year with the Boston Celtics, and here's why. Besides Isaiah Thomas, they got a lot better everywhere. Like Jay Crowder, I think is going to be a lot better with the Cavs than he ever was with the Celtics. I think Kyle Korver with the Cavs, a full season with the Cavs is going to be. He's not going to be nervous like he was in the playoffs. He's going to get real minutes. He's going to actually play. Channing Frye, I think he's going to mold his game a little bit more to where he's just coming off the bench and he's just going to be hitting that three. He's not going to be asked to do other things. And then this is all assuming that the Cavs stay healthy and they're one of the most injury-prone teams in the league. But if they are completely healthy, I like the Cavs over the Golden State Warriors in 7 games. But like I said, assuming the Cavs can stay healthy.
Where are you going to hide Isaiah Thomas on defense?
Steph Curry. That's the only place you could put him, but it's not like Steph Curry's a great defender anyway. I mean, he steals the ball, but like Isaiah Thomas steals the ball every. Just because you have a lot of steals doesn't mean you're a good defender. Rajon Rondo is a great stealer, but he overcommits on a lot of plays, and it really backfires on as far as team defense goes.
2 things that I want to mention. One has nothing to do with this. It's just a point about the NBA that always confused me. But to just reiterate my point from the beginning of the podcast, all 3 of us have the exact same teams going to the finals for the 4th straight year. The 2 of us have the Golden State Warriors winning, and you have the Cavaliers winning, but with all this help coming along with it. So that was the point that I was trying to make in the beginning of the podcast, that we just went through a bunch of information, and at the very, very end of it, came to the exact same conclusion. So that was the whole point that I was trying to make in the beginning, was that you don't need all of this storyline in basketball at the moment because you already know how the ending of the book is going to be written.
So my main, I guess, response to that would be the real problem obviously lies with these super teams. And the thing where we were talking earlier about realigning the conferences maybe, or even getting rid of those and just having the best 16 teams, that's not going to solve the super team problem. And with the luxury tax we have in place now, these billionaire owners are not going to have any problem paying that, because they know the more popular their team and brand becomes, the more they're going to sell out games. They can increase ticket prices. Exactly. So I think the best way to combat super teams is an actual hard tax, where once you're at that salary cap max, you aren't able to go over it no matter what.
Yeah, sort of like the NFL has.
Exactly.
The way it should be. I'm pretty sure the NHL is the same way.
So that I think is the only way we're actually going to get parity back into the NBA. But like you said earlier, Sean, we'd have to wait for the next CBA agreement to come up for that to even get brought up.
My next question was, why is there so many? It's probably a quick answer. Why is there so many people that are so bad at free throws? Like, you are a professional basketball player. Get your ass in the gym and sit at that free throw line until you can make them.
Well,
what is so hard?
Well, it's interesting. I've thought about this many times, and I actually saw a thing that you might have seen this too, Nick, that DeAndre Jordan in shoot-around, he makes like 85 out of 100 free throws when he's just shooting in the gym and people, like his teammates, are watching him. But for some reason, he has this psychological disability that when he's on the court in front of 20,000 people, he can't shoot them at a 50% rate.
That's the only thing I could think of, but I just wanted to ask your opinion about it because I thought it was so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, how is that that's like
Shaq would have been the all-time leading scorer if he just hit half more of the free throws that he attempted.
It's insane.
And the same thing with DeAndre Jordan, the same thing with Dwight. Dwight back in high school shot 90% from the free throw line. And obviously that's in a much smaller gym, much larger attendance, not as much pressure. And there was a picture floating around a couple years ago about back when D'Antoni was the coach and Dwight was on the Lakers, and it showed everybody's free throw percentage in practice. And this was a large sample size, over 1,000 attempts. Dwight shot 89%. So it's not like he doesn't have the ability. I think it could be something. I mean, I wouldn't call it the yips, but it's
it's definitely a mental factor that's affecting them in the games.
I didn't know that. I wanted to ask your opinion. I brought it up because you had mentioned Robertson. Robertson's terrible at it.
Yeah.
You said that he's so offensively.
He's not just bad at free throws, but he's bad at everything.
I know, but I remember seeing this one specific free throw where he didn't even hit the rim. It was so bad.
Yeah, you need to be kicked out of the NBA for that.
How could you do that when you're an NBA player? Mind blown.
He's an elite defender, but a completely inept offensive player. Besides cutting to the basket.
One thing I did want to bring up here is that we have these predictions, and yes, we all picked the same thing, but that doesn't mean anything at all. We could be completely dead wrong. Who knows? The Thunder could be the best team, and everything could gel together perfectly, and Steven Adams could take a step forward, and then boom.
I would love nothing more because that's what I want to see.
But it's like when we made our predictions earlier, like we not that we both picked the Patriots to win it all, but we both picked the Patriots to be like extremely good. You picked them to go 16-0. I picked them to win the Super Bowl. So it's like having that. We could be dead wrong. I mean, right now they're 4-2, and they have the worst defense.
I hate to say it, and they could be 1-5.
Yeah, and they have the worst. They have the worst. What do you mean you hate to say
it? You're right.
Don't lie.
I love to say it. It could be 1-5.
But it's just that the predictions don't mean a whole lot.
You're right.
But in basketball, it's more likely for what we think to actually happen.
I want to see what you're saying happen more than anything because it would just bring that intensity back to basketball.
It absolutely
that you see in the finals.
It absolutely would. And I think if that actually happened, then the narrative of superstars changing teams and going to play with whoever they wanted would stop because we saw Chris Paul go to a team that he wanted. We saw Jimmy Butler go to not necessarily that he chose the team that he wanted to go to, but he went to another team and sort of formed this super team, whatever you want to call it. So I think if that actually does happen, it'll change that narrative that super teams are bad. Because if you really just got like all the best players and put them on like 7 or 8 teams, the NBA would be freaking awesome, even if there were only those 7 or 8 teams.
I will say one thing that you can't account for is injuries. Because if we made this podcast yesterday, before the season started, I would have had the Celtics as the number 1 seed, as would probably of you guys.
Yeah.
And I would have had them challenging the Cavs in a very tough Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, I remember you telling me before the injury that you thought the Cavs are going to the final, or the Celtics are going to the finals.
Yes, with the addition of Kyrie and Gordon Hayward.
Yes, exactly.
Without that, I think that Kyrie can get them to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think that they can go past that. But it's just I want to see that intensity come back in basketball, and I want to see that fiery intensity all throughout the playoffs, not just in the finals. That's what I'm looking for as a sports fan. I want to be able to watch the NBA playoffs and not know who's going to win the game. Kind of like, best example I can give you, the Bulls Heat. You never saw them in the Eastern Conference Finals. It was always a second or a first round matchup.
Yeah.
I think they faced off in the Eastern Conference Finals once, and it was a 5-game series, and I'm pretty sure it was back in 2011. It was the year the Heat lost. But anyway, it was just, I want to see those type of series earlier in the playoffs. That's what I want.
Okay. Nick, as our NBA or senior NBA analyst, I want to ask you a couple questions here. Who will be the better rookie? And I'm only going to name 3 here, so if you have another one that you want to put into here, you can. But out of Ben Simmons, Lonzo Ball, and Jason Tatum.
Well, if I were to add a 4th, it would be Jonathan Isaac, homer pick. But okay. Out of those 3, I think the highest ceiling is definitely Lonzo Ball for this season because of the opportunities he's going to get.
Okay.
However, after seeing preseason and seeing Ben Simmons healthy, I think he will end up having the best season out of those 3. And you can see the 76ers, even though they drafted Markelle Fultz as number 1, they're having Ben Simmons as their primary point guard.
Wasn't Ben Simmons supposed to be the next great thing?
Yeah,
next LeBron?
Yeah, next LeBron, next Magic Johnson, next kind of player, next tall guard who can also play forward.
Yes.
So yeah, no, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think Ben Simmons is going into this year before everything happened. I thought Ben Simmons was going to be the best out of those three, just the way they're going to use him and the amount of playing time he's going to get, the amount of experience he's going to get, and the fact that he has young players and some veteran players that are going to help him out. But after the Hayward injury, I really think Jason Tatum is going to be that guy because he's going to get the opportunity to play a lot more minutes. And look, even with Hayward there, he started last night. They're expecting him to start right away and expecting him to be that guy right away. So the fact that he's going to have more opportunities, I think he could actually end up being the rookie of the year. I mean, if Lonzo Ball takes the Lakers to the playoffs basically by himself, you could say, then I definitely agree with you on Lonzo Ball.
In regards to Jason Tatum, I thought it was a tale of two halves for him. The first half, he put up 0 points. He looked completely lost on offense. He didn't know where he was supposed to be spacing-wise, and his shots were pretty off whenever he took them. He had some decent shots that Kyrie set up for him, but they were just off. Second half, he drops 14 points and looks pretty efficient doing it. So I thought, and he was forced to step up and did it. I think he was kind of thrusted into a starting role because Marcus Morris has been injured.
Yes.
And he was supposed to start, but now that Hayward's out, you're going to see Jason Tatum starting for sure. And he, like you said, will definitely get the opportunity to showcase himself.
Okay. Next question I have for you here is, can the Rockets learn how to play defense under D'Antoni? And if no, does it matter?
I think you brought up a very good point in regards to regular season D'Antoni. Regular season, teams play every couple days, and it's a different opponent. They have many different factors like travel to worry about, rest to worry about. So you're not going to be preparing as intensely for teams as you should be. And that's where, like you said, D'Antoni will shine because he can. One thing D'Antoni does great is he keeps his players with the type of basketball he plays in amazing condition. So he's constantly running teams off the floor. And once the playoffs come around, the game slows down, and teams can appropriately prepare for D'Antoni teams. As for defensively, regular season, it's not going to matter. They have the pieces there. Capella's a good interior defender. They brought in P.J. Tucker. Ariz is a solid defender. However, Chris Paul isn't the defender he once was. Ryan Anderson can't defend, and Eric Gordon isn't a great defender as well, along with James Harden. And those are players that are going to be playing significant minutes. I think losing Patrick Beverley will hurt them a bit. However, offensively, they're just a juggernaut, and in the regular season, it's not going to matter if they can play defense or not, because just like the Warriors yesterday, the Warriors were one of the best defensive teams in the league last year, and Houston put up 122 points on them. So if they can score on the Warriors, they'll score on anybody.
Now, for so long, we've been talking about this is LeBron's league. Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul, Carmelo, those players. Chris Bosh, although he's not in the league anymore. When is that going to change, and is it going to be the Andrew Wiggins and the Karl Anthony Towns and the Ben Simmons and the younger generations league? When are we going to see that transition? Is it going to happen this season? Is it going to happen next season? When are we going to see that transition from generation to generation, kind of like we did when MJ finished his generation when LeBron was drafted moving forward?
Well, just like with the transition from MJ to Kobe and Kobe to LeBron, it didn't happen overnight. It was a very fluid type of transition. And even if you see LeBron not make it to the finals one year, like for instance when LeBron, that season he lost to the Warriors, everyone wanted to crown Stephen Curry as the best player in the NBA. The very next season, LeBron comes out and beats a 73-9 Warriors team and shows, hey, this is still my league. I own this. LeBron has such a great off-court presence and is such a great representative for the league, more than pretty much anyone in history, that I think even if his play declines, himself as just an athlete, as a businessman, will be that representative of the league. But in regards to taking over play-wise, I think it's not going to be until the Cavaliers really start to drop off, and then you see the Giannis's and, like you said, the Karl Anthony Towns step up. And
how many years are you would you approximate to that? Because it has been. We're looking at them going into their mid-30s now, to where they're not counting out LeBron because he's a freak athlete. Dwayne Wade's not in his prime anymore. Carmelo's not in his prime anymore. Chris Paul's not in his prime anymore. And all these players that we've been growing up watching are no longer in their primes. When are we going to finally see the tide completely turn and them be the role players?
See, the interesting thing about LeBron, and with Kobe, what happened to him was he suffered some pretty significant
The
injuries.
Achilles was...
Exactly, and coming back from that and having first his shoulder surgery, his torn labrum, and then the Achilles, doing that 2 years in a row, that just completely dampened him, and it's a lot to come back from that. We've never seen LeBron suffer a major injury, and he keeps himself in tip-top shape all year round. I know after last game he said his conditioning wasn't like it's supposed to, but he's still in better condition than 99%.
Yeah, that's interesting that like he brought that up, because when you watch the entire game, yeah, he wasn't the same LeBron as normally, but if you watch like the final like 2 or 3 minutes of that game, he flipped that switch and it's like, oh, that's the LeBron that we know.
Exactly. So I think honestly, until we see a major injury, for the last 8 years, his worst stat lines have been he has never scored lower than 25 points. He's never averaged less than 7 rebounds and 6 assists, and that's insane to me. And those are the worst categories over one season, over an entire 8 years, and those for any other player are absolutely elite numbers. So for LeBron, it's going to be a very slow decline, and I think he's very conscious about his legacy, to when the moment he starts to decline, he will know when to call it quits. And I think
he's not going to be one of those players that plays and plays and plays. He'll call it while he can still play.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's I like the honesty. Because I feel like it's always kind of cool when you see that new generation of players, and we've kind of seen it in football over the last couple of years. With Peyton out and Tom Brady now in his 40s officially. So we've kind of seen it in football. I've been seeing it in hockey over the last 5-6 years, and I'm really we're seeing it in baseball now with watching the New York Yankees as we speak. And I can't wait to see it happen in basketball. I'm pretty excited.
One thing, we're going back to that question that you were bringing up, James. Will it ever be Durant's league?
I think Durant is young enough to where he will have a period to where it will be his league, because
it's not already. I mean, some people say he's the best.
That is, I mean, he did just win Finals MVP. The only reason I would hesitate to say it will be his league is because he shares a team with Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
And they share the spotlight. And neither of those guys, in my opinion, will ever win another MVP as long as they're on the same team. Okay. Just because of, I mean, they're always going to be an amazing team. They're both going to be...
How could they?
Exactly.
How could they? It wouldn't be fair.
Exactly. So just by the virtue of the team Kevin Durant is on, he might have a couple years where it could potentially be his league. But again, Anthony Davis is coming up. Karl-Anthony Towns is on the rise. Giannis is on the rise, and it's going to be very, very hard where you have an interlap of LeBron on the decline and still above those young players taking those next steps to being superstars.
I can't wait to see a Bucks Timberwolves NBA finals. No, I'm serious. Would it not be awesome to see the Greek Freak versus a Karl-Anthony Towns as they get older? That's what I'm looking forward to.
One thing I want to talk about here, we haven't talked about this team at all, and I think it's kind of a shame. Not who you think, not yet. Don't worry, it's coming, but not yet. So I mentioned the Lakers as a team that I think is going to be the 8th seed in the West, and I think they're going to have some real growth. But and I know this is a real popular team to talk about, but what about the Phoenix Suns? I feel like they made the correct draft pick with Josh Jackson, and some people are saying he was the best player coming into the draft. When are the Suns going to get it together, if at all? And will we see a Suns-Lakers rivalry again, a real rivalry between them again?
The Suns are an intriguing team. I don't think they're going to be good this year, but they have nice pieces to set them up for the future. Obviously, like you said, Josh Jackson, and I agree, he has potential. I don't think he has a chance to win Rookie of the Year because of he's behind in the rotation behind T.J. Warren and Devin Booker and everybody. But I think he can have potential to be the best player out of this draft class because of his versatility. However, it's unfortunate Brandon Knight went down for them. He's been a solid backup. I do think they need to try to trade Bledsoe as soon as they can to get as much value as they can from him, and they need to do something about their big men rotation because they have a project in Dragan Bender. They have Marquise Chris, who is very athletic but is very one-dimensional. And then, of course, what are you going to do with Alex Len and Tyson Chandler? Tyson Chandler is getting paid way too much money for what he's worth. He was one of the leading rebounders last year, but I think you need to get him off the books as well. They're in a good rebuilding stage with what they have. They have a lot of young players and a lot of assets to move. It all depends what they do with those assets.
Okay, and final question that I have here. What the hell are the Orlando Magic doing? And what the hell are you doing putting them in your playoffs?
Well, like I said, it was a homer pick. It is going to be a stretch to win another 10 games. We were the second worst team in plus minus last season. And I honestly believe the Magic have a good collection of talented players that have trouble fitting together. As you can see, Elfrid Payton, not a lot of people believe in him. However, he did get more than 5 triple-doubles last season. So he is a capable point guard. He has glaring deficiencies, which he can't shoot. But he's a very willing passer. He's similar to a Rondo, and Rondo made it work, although he was surrounded by superstars. Evan Fournier is a very good scorer that we have, and he can help spread the floor. Bringing in Jonathan Simmons to get more length on this team, Jonathan Isaac, putting Aaron Gordon in his correct position. The one thing I think we do need to do is trade Vucevic. He is a good defender, he is a good offensive player, and he's just an absolute nightmare in pick and roll defense, and that's where we struggled the most last season. It's his best fit would be on a good team as a scoring big off the bench. So if we can get anything for him, that would be solid. The Biyombo contracts, obviously, that has not played into our hands at all. We lost the Ibaka trade, but I do like the versatility we have in our team. We have a lot of long wings that again, like the Thunder, obviously not as good as the Thunder, but defensively we can switch a lot. We won't have problems matching up with many teams, but offensively, unfortunately, we may struggle a bit.
Okay, just a couple of teams here I just want to run through it. Say which team is better. Don't give a reason, just say which team is better.
Sure.
Orlando or Atlanta?
Orlando
or Chicago?
Orlando.
I'm curious why. I'm a Bulls fan.
All right, why?
Well, I think the Bulls, especially with Levine out, he's by far their best player.
Now Mirotic.
And Mirotic getting punched in the face by his own player. And Bobby Portis being suspended because of that. You're left with Robin Lopez. You're left with Chris Dunn's coming off an injury. Cameron Payne is absolutely awful. Justin Holiday has looked promising in preseason, but you don't want to rely on Justin Holiday.
Are we looking at a possible first overall pick this year?
Yes. I think the Bulls will be the worst team in the league.
Worse than Brooklyn?
Yes.
Worse than New York?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the two teams fighting for the worst spot are Atlanta and Chicago.
Okay. Now, Orlando, the last team here, Orlando or Indiana?
That is close. I think, obviously, as you can see, I have the Magic in the 8th seed, so yes. I think we are better. I think the Pacers do have some nice pieces, though, but I think the Magic are going to be
I was wondering if you were going to be a homer with your boy Victor Oladipo there, and because now he's on the Pacers. And
I mean, he has the potential to thrive. As you know, he went to Indiana for college, and I still have his jersey. I love Oladipo. I will always be fond of him. And he is definitely going to have opportunities in Indiana. You're basically rolling with an Oladipo, Thad Young, Miles Turner core, maybe Darren Collison and Corey Joseph.
I think Miles Turner is going to take a huge step. I think
agree.
Miles Turner is going to take a huge step forward.
I agree. And he will have as many opportunities as their team wants him to have. He's going to put up some good numbers. However, they're not a very deep team, and I think the Magic, being a decently deep team, will be able to outlast them for sure over the course of the season.
All right, James, you got any other questions for Nick? Yeah, that's it for me too. Thank you, Nick, for coming on. I really appreciate it having our senior NBA analyst and Orlando Magic fan. Boy, we don't really come up with those two often.
They're a rarity for sure.
Yeah. But next podcast, the weekend podcast, it's your favorite stuff. We have our DraftKings. We have our picks against the spread. We're going to give you fantasy advice. We're going to give you the opening rant. It's your favorite episode of the week. We will be coming hard with full football. So if you missed the football this week, we tried to throw a little bit in there for you, but we will go full football next week. Please like the show on Facebook. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Send us an email if you want to email the show with a question. We'll read it on air. We'll make fun of you, whatever you want to do.
And if you like making money, follow these guys' picks.
Yeah, we're helping you out, right?
Although I did take some money from you last week on that Jags-Rams game.
Well, yeah, that's a funny thing because I'm my pick on the podcast. I picked the Rams plus 2.5, but with you, because you're a Rams fan, I'm a Jags fan. I was like, yes, screw it, we'll do the pick 'em. But yeah, so we will be coming hard next episode this weekend.
We went head to head. Miami Falcons. Who won that one? You'll find out.
I'm BTH.